This is the most important election of our lifetime.
This is the most important election of our times.
Look, this is the most important election, certainly in my lifetime.
This is the most important election in our lifetimes.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
This is the most important election of all our lifetime.
Welcome back to the most important radio show of your life.
This is the most important radio show of your lifetime.
Welcome back to the most important radio show of your life.
This is the most important radio show of your lifetime. The most important. And tomorrow, that will be the most important show of your lifetime.
Of your lifetime.
Of your whole lifetime.
Is that something you've heard before? I mean,
this is what we hear from politicians every year, and that's our point.
We talked about it in the beginning of the show, how there are people in, paying attention to politics or to liberty movement every couple of years. And so, like you mentioned earlier in the show, is the establishment knows that, and so they have these pat lines that they use every couple of years because they know most people haven't heard it before, and they can sound like they're just these wise sages. And
right.
And something that we hear every couple of years is,
this is the most important election of our lifetime. At the caucus meeting, Orrin Hatch gets up at the state convention. So not the caucus meeting, the state convention, right? And he said it. This is the most important election of our lifetime. I'm like, facepalm, please. and so what that does to you, if you're like a newer activist that's kind of getting into it, it makes you feel like, oh, yeah, it's good. I really came in at the right time.
At the right time, right.
And this is important. I'm going to dedicate myself to this.
I'm going to spend all my money and all of my time on this election because there's nothing more important. Orrin Hatch said so.
And on party politics specifically.
Right.
Specifically,
right. On the election itself, on the party politics, making sure that my favorite letter gets elected and so the other bad letter doesn't get elected.
The Democrats will say it. The Republicans will say it. It's a political strategy that kind of keeps you tunnel-visioned on party politics and not really on the issues, or then you're not worried. You're less like judgmental of the candidates because it's too important to be nitpicky.
Right. Quote unquote too important. Right. That's the mindset that they're instilling into us. That I don't have this. This is just too important for us to get nitpicky. We've got to make sure and just get the
guy elected,
the least bad guy elected. Otherwise, there's these documentaries that come out that they essentially say that if X gets elected, it is Armageddon, and it's the end of our country forever if this guy gets elected.
Back in the 60s, there was a TV commercial,
right,
in the presidential election,
right,
where they actually said there will be nuclear war, and they show a big bomb
There's this little kid picking daisies, and then this nuclear bomb goes off.
Because you voted for the wrong guy. That's how important your vote is, so don't be picky about what that guy does.
Don't be principles. Don't hold him accountable, because if we do
that,
nuclear war.
Wait till next time. Be picky next time. But this time, right, nuclear war, China will invade, the earth will fall out of the bottom, we'll now have a hollow earth.
the flat earth will turn to the hollow earth. It'll just be mass chaos, cats and dogs playing together, mass hysteria. And there's a video. We want to hear from you as well. What do you think about, when did you first hear this is the most important election of our lifetime? What do you think about that? 801-254-1640, 801-254-1640. But somebody on YouTube, of course, because YouTube is the bastion of all information, did a video about a compilation of different politicians using this line. So we're going to play through it, and then we're going to talk about it afterwards real quick. Listen to this.
A very happy new year to you, 2012. The most important election of our lifetime begins tomorrow.
There are only a few months left before the most important election in our lifetime.
This year's election is quite possibly the most important election of our lifetime.
What motivated you to say that this is the election of our lifetime?
Last week, you called this election the most important of your lifetime.
This is the most important election of our lifetime.
This is the
biggest election since 1860, I believe.
I think all of us are here tonight because we agree with Callista's statement that this is the most important election of our lifetime.
This is the most important election you've ever voted in your entire life.
And this is the most important election, I believe, of our lifetime. Days in Iran.
Right. And you did the right thing.
My fellow Americans, this is the most important election of our lifetime.
For that reason, ladies and gentlemen, the election of 2004 is one of the most important, not just in our lives, but in our history.
But I do make a pledge that in the next 10 days, when we're asking the American people to make one of the most important decisions in their lifetime, because I think this election is one of the most vital in the history of America.
I think in many ways this election is more important than any since 1932.
This is certainly the most important election in my lifetime. You are aware that there's a pretty intense campaign going on right now. And the reason for that is because the choice that we face this November could not be bigger, could not be more significant. In some ways, it's more important than 2008.
Okay, so that was a wide-ranging from going back to the 1960s all the way to today, from a wide variety of Republicans and Democrats all saying the same thing. And what you notice, too, is that they were implying the most important election of our lifetime doesn't mean that every election's important, because you saw some of them say since a certain date or of my entire life, meaning all of the other elections were essentially meaningless until we got to this one.
Right.
This is the one that's important because, and so you need to be involved in it. You need to spend all of your money on this election. You need to spend all of your time getting me elected. And if we don't, nuclear war is your fault because you didn't. This happened actually the last election with certain people that we were involved with. They were telling us that if X got elected, it was partly because of us, and they would hold us personally accountable. Remember that?
Because it was so
important. It was so important. Most important election of our lifetime. And it was going to be, just mass chaos if that person got elected. What's in, this video, this audio clip that we just played on the air goes back to the 1960s, but actually it was in the 1860s, or was it? It was in the mid 1800s. I don't have the date right in front of me, but it was in the mid 1800s that this phrase started.
Right, we've seen it go back in history.
Right,
you can see it way predating television and radio, where we have audio records. It's in written records,
in
as well,
newspaper articles.
The
New York Times would do editorials trying to get people to believe that election was the most important election since the beginning of our country.
So if there's anything you learn about politics that you didn't know before today, right now, by listening to this, know that when you hear that phrase, with the exception of people who are just repeating it because they heard a politician say it, the establishment itself uses that phrase to sort of get you to stop thinking and just go to work because it's too important to ask too many questions. Or
if you hear somebody say that phrase, they
question them.
Question them, right. Because they are either, I would say one of two things, either knowingly trying to manipulate you and to get you to waste your time and talents and resources, or they are brainwashed by people that are doing that.
Right.
So let's go through that audio piece by piece, because you have people in the media that are saying it, and you have elected officials that are saying it, and it really is meaningful in all of those cases.
Yeah, let's look at all the different people who are saying it.
So starts off with Bill O'Reilly, who got fired for being a pervert, abusing women. Oops, let me go back a second. Turn the audio back on. There we go.
Very happy New Year to you, 2012. The most important election of our lifetime begins tomorrow.
Begins tomorrow. Get ready.
This is in 2012 that he said that.
This is a call to action. Tomorrow, everybody so that's a media personality. So
and he was a quote unquote conservative, and so in 2012 the important election was between Obama and Mitt Romney. So in 2012 he was saying the most important thing because he was coming from the conservative side, if Mitt Romney didn't get elected in 2012, It was just going to be chaos.
Then it was chaos, which he didn't get elected, and
we continued on as normal, bigger government, more
I
globalism.
would say it was chaos, but it's the same chaos that we had before.
We've had for the last 150 years.
And we would have had either way, right.
The same chaos would happen either way, right?
The Marxist chaos. Okay, the next guy.
There are only a few months left before the most important election in our lifetime.
So that was Newt Gingrich's wife.
So, and this wasn't like on mainstream. That was C-SPAN. So it's not. I mean, it's mainstream cable, but it's not like the State of the Union address or something like that, right?
This is when she was when Newt was running for president. Was that in 2008 or 2012?
He's done it more than once, hasn't he?
Well, yeah, but I think this one was 2012 again. So, but Newt Gingrich, as we understand, and he's just like Bill O'Reilly, is one of these guys that doesn't treat women very well and has the same interesting background.
There's an interesting story of him and his ex-wife that I've heard. That's for another show, I guess.
This year's election is quite possibly the most important election of our lifetime.
So that was a presidential candidate, a competing one.
The name didn't have it on the screen; it was escaping me. But one of supposedly
that was 2008,
the Christian
right?
one. No, that was 2012 again as well.
That's the guy that took
28. Yeah, that was 28.
That's the guy who made a backroom deal in the Ohio caucus when Ron Paul won.
Right.
And then they, lost the vote. They were confused. So Mitt Romney and him made a handshake deal of who got the state instead of the guy who got the votes, which was Ron Paul, that candidate.
So now we go back to Chuck Norris on Bill O'Reilly's show. On Huckabee's show. Sorry, on Huckabee's show.
Motivated you to say that this is the election of our lifetime.
So that's like Hollywood personalities come out and say this.
Right.
So there's a political strategy between Hollywood and Republicans and Democrats all working together using the same. I mean, where did they all get the line from? There's clearly some kind of organization.
Right.
I don't know exactly how it all happened, but it's clear it's the same line being used.
Now we've got John Boehner.
Last week, you called this election the most important of your lifetime.
So you got John Boehner, former Speaker of the House, saying that and getting Fox News to go along with it. Now we have, I'll play the next one.
The most important election of our lifetime.
I can't remember.
We don't know who that guy was.
So now we've got another media personality coming up right now.
This is the biggest election since 1860, I believe.
So Glenn Beck saying that that election, was it 2012, was the biggest election since the 1860s.
You know, all of these guys, if you were to see them say it on live TV the first time, just as soon as you hear that, alarm bells need to be going off.
Right.
This guy is connected in the wrong places.
All the wrong places.
I think all of us are here tonight because we agree with Callista's statement that this is the most important election of our lifetime.
Okay, Newt Gingrich right there, 2012,
and
saying...
he's speaking at a motor club.
Right.
So it shows you that it's when they go out, this is part of the platform that they're trained to say this. Like motor club, that wasn't like the State of the Union address. Again, it wasn't like a major primetime event.
Right.
This is part of how they just go out and use it both big and in small areas, right? Just like at the state convention, party convention, Orrin Hatch used it.
Yep.
So this is the most important election you've ever voted in your entire life.
And this is the most important election, I believe, of our lifetime. Days are on.
And you did the right thing.
My fellow Americans, this is the most important election of our lifetime.
2004, Dick Cheney.
For that reason, ladies and gentlemen, the election of 2004 is one of the most important, not just in our lives, but in our history.
Ever.
But I do make a pledge
next one's
that in the next 10 days, when we're asking the American people to make one of the most important decisions in their lifetime, because I think this election is one of the most vital in the history of America.
In the history of America.
Ever.
I mean, that's just, yeah. So 1960, John F. Kennedy.
In many ways, this election is more important than any since 1932.
So the biggest election since 1932. As if, everything between 1932 and 1960 was pretty much inconsequential. This is the next one. If we don't do this, we're going to lose everything.
Cats and dogs raining from the sky.
Playing together, mass hysteria. So make sure that as we get ready for the next election, we're sticking to principles. We're looking at the long range, realizing that getting, quote-unquote, the right guy elected is just going to perpetuate the same issues that we've had for our entire life, and that we need to be focused on more effective activism. And that's what we do at Defending Utah. For activist members, we have weekly trainings to help you be actually an effective activist.